Hey, welcome back to Beyond the Trailer Park. And yeah, it's not Monday. You can blame it on the guy in the middle there. That's all his fault. I'll introduce him in a minute. But yeah, so it's Sunday, and we are here a day early. So hopefully somebody will read our postings and show up to say hi. But that's okay. We'll be here early tomorrow for those who didn't realize that we were going live early. And my apologies for those who like to hang out in the chat if we're not there because it's tomorrow. But, you know, shit happens. It's all right. But joining us all the way from the cheese and cow tipping state, good evening, Joe. Good to have you back.
It's good to be back. Thank you.
You're very welcome. And yes, it's his fault because he has a standing commitment on Monday. So we kind of.
I'm sorry.
I know. Whoever else it is, they better realize how bloody lucky they are. But joining us from Pennsylvania as usual, good evening, Beth.
Good evening.
And from the great state of Mississippi, good evening, Morgan.
Good evening.
The landmass.
Yeah, the landmass
between Mobile and New Orleans. Yes.
Yep. Yeah, Joe. When we were talking about the hurricane a few months ago, Morgan was pointing out that almost always in news reports, if the hurricane is going to Alabama, they'll say it's going to Alabama. If it's going to Louisiana, it's going to Louisiana. But if it's going to hit Mississippi, it's going to hit the landmass in between.
I'm like, we have a name.
Yeah, it's landmass.
Yeah, it's a landmass between Mobile and New Orleans. Yeah.
Yeah. And the funny part too was that week there was a story in the CBC, and we called it Mississippi.
Yeah, but the rest of America just doesn't acknowledge us. But except for now, which is hilarious. My favorite thing that's been happening now is we have a very nasty Senate runoff happening right now. We have a white supremacist, Cindy Hyde-Smith, who she's terrible. She was appointed by the governor. So she's running for the seat for the special election. And then Mike Espy is running against her, but because nobody got over 50%, they are now in the runoff. So Mike Espy being the Democrat. And so, yeah, Cindy Hyde-Smith has been acting wild. So, of course, all these reporters are now flocking to Mississippi. And so, because she just keeps on fucking everything up. And so, in spectacular fashion. And so it's hilarious because on Twitter, like, they'll be like, what's a good place to eat in Jackson? And everybody will tell them, like, the worst places to eat in Jackson just because everybody wants them to go away. So, it's the funniest fucking thing, and I'm dying. But there have been actually some good recommendations, so you just have to know who you're talking to. But yeah, it is pretty funny because it's happening actually on Tuesday, so we'll see.
Wow.
We can flip.
I saw that she got photographed wearing Confederate Army regalia.
Oh yeah, and she said it was the she was at Beauvoir, which is Jefferson Davis's estate down here in Biloxi, and she was saying, "Oh yeah, this is the Mississippi history at its finest," and I was like, "We have a lot of dark chapters in our history."
Well,
but I'm not sure I would call that era our finest hour.
What makes it even more bizarre is that Mike Espy is black, isn't he?
Yes, and then she said she would be at a hanging. She would go to a public hanging with one dude. And she didn't apologize. She's like, "I'm sorry if she did that whole." She eventually would say, "Oh, I'm sorry if anybody was offended." But then they're like, "Y'all are trying to turn this into a race thing." I'm like, "Bitch, you live in Mississippi. That is already a race thing. Automatically, that means like I'd go to a lynching with him. Like,
yeah,
here. Like you're not in California."
Worst thing is she doubled down on that whole thing. And then just this morning, I was reading where she sent her daughter, her kid, I don't know.
Her granddaughter. She got her an NRA lifetime membership for her second birthday.
Oh, no!
What?
She
Oh,
sent her
Wow.
daughter to a segregationist private school.
Oh no, that's not rare. Actually, what's really funny is everybody
Yeah.
else in the country is commenting on that, but actually, all private schools in Mississippi started out as segregationist schools.
Right, because of that
So that's
whole.
not really like big a
But-
deal as everybody's making it out to be, because literally my dad went to a private school, and it's like you could say easily that he went to a segregationist academy because it was founded in 1967. But
went cracker high, basically.
yeah, like, but that's the thing. Like any private school, it doesn't matter. Like in the South is going to be one of these like academies or whatever. Now she definitely is a white supremacist. I'll believe that in a second. But
well, it's good to know about the schools because I mean,
and also up in like, and I love how people in Oregon are writing about it. And I'm like, bitch, black people weren't even allowed to live in your state until 1920. So you might want to calm down.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, but you know we're so horrible. Yeah. All right.
Just let it be known that at least my state took care of business during the midterms, or at least we kicked out our ridiculously corrupt Republican governor.
Oh
and,
yeah.
And we elected a school superintendent. So just saying.
Yeah, so congrats on that. Hopefully we can have some sense here and not fuck it, continue to fuck everything up as their legacy. But
No.
We've got this guy named Doug Ford you guys could have.
no,
we're good.
Nope,
we're good.
it's okay. I don't want him.
we're fine.
We'll build a wall, Deb, if you send him here.
You're right.
That
Beautiful.
fucker.
Beautiful, magnificent wall.
He is trying to copy the Republicans like you would not believe. It is
Is he
unreal.
building a wall to keep the Americans out?
Not yet, but he did. So his party is called the Progressive Conservative Party.
Yeah, that's right.
Total oxymoron. And they just recently had I guess I don't know how often they do it, whether it's annually or biannually or whatever, but they meet periodically to go over their party platform and discuss if they want to add or change anything. Well, they added something this year. They added the fact that as a party, they are no longer going to recognize gender identity as a thing.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is that makes Ford, Trump, Duarte in the Philippines, the dude that just got elected in Brazil, is scuttlebutt. I won't say quite rumor, but some ideas and some notions is this leaning towards extreme right-wing, ultra-conservative fascists and authoritarians is actually allegedly Putin's doing.
I could see it.
Because there's seems to be also in Europe there's a rise of that as well, even more so than normal. Now in Europe they've always had this issue. More prominent than we have because of their history, obviously. But I can't remember who it was. One of the pundits I read quite regularly was commenting that there seems to be a rise in non-European countries where we're getting these authoritarian fascist idiots like Trump.
Well, it's not going to go too far in here, I don't think. So I'm hoping. We just one of our local groups. We just had a brunch with a member of parliament last weekend. Well, a week ago today, actually, and she had a lot to say that made me feel better. So that's good because I was like, you people. I mean, now Ford is provincial, where she is federal. Like she works for Trudeau, and Ford works under Trudeau. He's like the governor of the province, right? So he runs his own shit. But I'm like, you federal folks, you got to do something about this shit because no. But anyway,
well, and that's the thing. At least you seem to have that, for lack of a better word, protection. Where here in the States with Trump and his little minions, right now, while it's building, nobody seems to have the balls to say, shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
You know, and the thing is, I mean, yeah, we have impeachment as a possibility, but Pence is just as bad. So it's like we're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place. So
Yeah.
they're going to have to find a way. I mean, personally, his whole cabinet, his whole administration needs to heave ho, but how the hell do you do that without holding?
At least you won't have a creep like Paul Ryan next in line. It'll be some Democrat. Although I've heard nasty.
Back the gavel.
Yep.
No, he'll just come. Paul Ryan will just come back to Wisconsin for us.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's right. I forget he's a Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Well, maybe you can convince him to go cow tipping, and he'll get squashed.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. We got so many bad, in my opinion, so many bad eggs, and the fact that it's 2018 and we're talking Jim Crow bullshit. We got Cindy Hyde-Smith down in Mississippi with her crap, and then you got Liz Conkrin, a Looney Tune right-wing pundit who just got kicked off of Twitter again. Finally, hopefully it's permanent. I mean, that woman's fucking nuts. I thought Kat Kerr, the prophetess, was nutty. And then you have, I mean, we're just loaded with them, and it's like, I mean, I know Europe probably has the exact same problem, but it's like it seems to be much more quiet there than it is here.
Yeah. Well, at least nobody from political parties are going to try and kill you.
Right.
True.
So Joe's got limited time tonight, so we kind of want to. I know we could talk about idiot politicians forever, but we need to sort of shift things over to our.
So long.
Oh, yes.
So long.
Oh, yes. But so last time Joe joined us, and we were talking about his experiences in the INC and what the INC were about, what they're like, and all that fun stuff. And we was the next day or 2 days later,
Yeah,
story broke in the Canadian press about a fellow from the Philippines who had been granted refugee asylum basically in Canada because we believe he was being persecuted and under threat by the INC. Mm-hmm. And so Joe and I were kind of like, holy shit. And yeah, what was that, Beth?
What gets me about this news story, not so much the murder, but the show that Fifth Estate did, which is basically a Canadian version of 60 Minutes with more balls.
Yeah.
But it's like, I did not realize there's 80 congregations in Canada. I didn't realize it. And California has the biggest conglomeration of parishioners outside of the Philippines.
Well, that's basically as much, without trying to sound too stereotypical, Philippines flocked to California like there was nothing else. So that's where they usually congregate.
Yeah, and it's like, it just kind of blew my mind because I'm thinking, like, when I was writing up the blurb for tonight, advertising the show, it's like, how can these people claim moral high ground but yet fucking murder somebody in cold blood and think nothing of it? Oh, we don't. You're lying. I mean, anything the Fifth Estate brought up, and they brought up like issues with money, skimming off the top of collection plates and sending the money to the Philippines, basically money laundering. They have kidnapping, physical intimidation, obviously the murder in the Philippines. And I initially thought it was in Canada that the guy was killed, but he was a Canadian who was living in the Philippines. Yes. And it was like, but they're denying all of it. And then they had a little blurb, 6-minute blurb video talking to the reporter.
Yes.
And was it producer or cameraman? I can't remember which.
Both, I think. It was several of the people that worked on the story.
Yeah, and it's like their fucking tires were slashed while they were at a convention center for the head of the church. Was visiting Toronto. I mean, how can you deny that your people when you wouldn't let anybody in the parking area? It's like, it's just like, how can a church claim that high ground? It's baffling.
Well, it's fascinating. So first of all, Deb, if you could link the 45, well, I'll probably just say the 6-minute video, the 45-minute video, the whole episode, and then the article that they wrote about it, that'd be awesome. If you haven't watched the whole 45-minute episode, I highly recommend it. It's really good. And I definitely agree with Beth that, I mean, it's basically 60 minutes with more balls. So I love that idea too. So I've actually talked to some of my friends from the church about this segment and about the tire slashing. And they thought it was justified.
What?
They said, I'm not kidding you. And my face was the same as yours. You can't just go up to someone and ask for an interview like that without security getting in your face. So I said, okay, but that's just part of the job. They can tell them to go home, and they did. They called the police if it was too bad, and that's fine. But slashing the tires was okay. And they're like, well, is there video evidence of it? Hold on. And yeah, they constantly tried to say it was either justified or that they did not have definitive video evidence of them doing it. Therefore, it doesn't matter.
Well, there's no evidence of the person doing it. It's the after fact. 4 slashed tires. They're in it. Yeah, they slashed all 4 tires, and they were in a parking garage below the venue wherever the head of the church was speaking. I don't remember if it was the convention center or the church in the Toronto area. So the only people down there were the church security, the news team, and that's it. So who the fuck slashed the tires? You put 2 and 2 together.
Oh, right. Well, then on top of that, in the 45-minute segment, the guy that was tailing them, because what they did is the minute that they were established as a threat, the reporters were established as a threat, they had a tail from the church the entire time, even when they were outside of the grounds.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's like Minerka, in that 45-minute clip, they were showing where they actually have photos that they have posted, I'm assuming on Facebook, I could be wrong, of his whereabouts throughout the day. They're tailing
and that's the gentleman who escaped to Canada.
Right. He was the subject of our initial story, and what caught Deb and my attention was obviously the recent murder, and the wife and his son are safe. They're in Canada. But that's what caught her, and it's funny because in the piece from Fifth Estate, and we'll be referring back to it, and we'll throw the link in there, is that they brought Minerka back in, and I mean, to me, is like, how, with as many churches within Canada and the US, how could any of them even feel safe?
Yeah.
Right.
Especially knowing that you're being tailed.
Right.
I mean,
well, and luckily he's the only one. Well, now he's brought his mom. So, but it's just the 2 of them. His family is in hiding elsewhere. He's got a wife and 2 children, and his second child wasn't even born yet when he had to leave. So he's never actually met the second child yet. But they even threatened the eldest child when he was in the Philippines.
They sent a photo with a gun and her ex. I mean that's just fucking bizarre.
And that's a child at that time. I think couldn't have been more than 3 years old.
Right.
Oh no! And the thing is, they're claiming Christianity. They're claiming a moral high ground based in a religious belief, but they're threatening a fucking child.
Yeah.
I mean, how fucking asinine. I mean, I know it happens elsewhere. I know, we have a litany of, shit. But this is a church that claims that they don't do anything wrong, and they're threatening a fucking child. And you can't tell me, oh, it's not coming from them, because the coincidences don't lie.
Well, and what's also fascinating is when I talked to, and I haven't heard this before, so I still have to look more into it. When I was, or when I brought up the idea of the tire slashing and the aggressive nature that the reporters faced, the first thing I was asked was, well, were those actual INC people?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, they were at the event. Well, were those the fake INC people?
What fake INC people?
What? Wait. Hold on. So
they mentioned in the video, I believe it was a filing from the lawyers from INC making that suggestion that there are fake INC people going around doing things, making the church look bad.
So here's yes, and that's the story. Now the problem is I don't know much about it, so I need to look more into it. But apparently they're actually, and because of the executive minister Eduardo Manalo, with how crazy and how many scandals are going on, people are like splintered in the church right now, and people are going off and doing their own thing. But there are people who still want to be a part of the church, but want to get away from Eduardo Manalo's leadership. Mm-hmm. So they're actually splitting up, forming their own INC sect that's based around Irano Manalo's, Eduardo's father, teachings when he was executive minister. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, it's just bonkers. And then they're saying how these people are trying to kill the current INC members, how they're trying to pose as other INC members just to give them a bad name. Now, to me, that just sounds too fishy. And also, given the source, I have to be skeptical, but I don't know too much about it offhand.
Scientology is going through the same thing with the independents, and the exact same accusations have been made back and forth through there. And if you think about,
it reminds me of Scientology.
Yeah, well, there's a lot
of harassment and the sex splitting off, and the murders, and us claiming, oh no, we're just
and
this group.
The way they were following the reporters around and trying to intimidate them, and the one guy would get, once they were made tailing, they would get the one guy would get out of the car and go talk to the lead reporter and be like, well, we just have to make sure that you're doing the right thing, and it's exactly how Scientology acts with reporters. It's exactly like if you watch the one where Panorama from like a decade ago is investigating Scientology, and they send Tommy Davis after him. That other guy from the INC is totally like Tommy Davis. Getting out and going and talking to them like, oh, I'm so sorry your tires got slashed. Who would do a thing like that?
Well, he initially, when they confronted him, the guy that was telling him, he wouldn't admit he was from INC, and then I guess partway through the interview, he admitted he was INC, and it's like, don't you see the problem here?
Right. Well, and then even on top of that, like, it could not have, and this was on video, at least when they confronted that same guy in the parking garage about the tire slash. He's like, you serious? Like, this has just happened. What the heck are you guys doing? And he just sits there with hands in his pocket, goes, whoa, that's bad. Man, stuff like that happens. And he just shakes his head. I'm like, it's like epitome, like you are a villain of a movie right now.
It's like a monster being like, Seamus, something happened over here.
That's exactly what I was just thinking. Nice set of tires. Be real shame if something happened to him, wouldn't it?
Oh my goodness. And it's amazing that it doesn't dawn on these people.
No.
It's absolutely amazing.
Well, and and that's where this whole, cult thing comes in, because it's like, and, it's like the upper echelon can do no wrong, but yet, there's innuendo of them filtering money off the collection plate coming from one of the interviewees who was a former pastor within the church. And, but what makes it, I don't think they're going to get away with it too much longer here in the States, maybe. But in the Philippines, they have Duarte behind them.
Yep.
And, they have that political influence. And, I mean, the chances of the killer, of the guy from Canada ever found is probably zilch.
Well, and that story really kind of illustrates the type of power they have, because now I have linked the videos and the article in the YouTube description now while we were chatting here. But if you read the article, which is about the murder, so the gentleman who was killed, he was never part of the church. He never had anything to do with the church. His whole crime was that he lived next to property owned by the church. They decided they were going to build some shit on this property and be obnoxious, like doing construction work at 3:00 in the morning,
like parking in his driveway or blocking his driveway with.
Yeah, and he has a family. He has a young son. And they were disrupting his daily life, and he was just trying to get them to stop being shitheads. And they were so full of themselves and knew that they had power enough to do it that they just didn't care. They just kept doing it. When he made himself to be enough of a nuisance, they just sent somebody next door and shot him right in front of his poor child.
And well, they showed a clip, I think, of Manalo with Duarte. I mean,
well, and just another show of power in that same episode was when they had recordings of Lowell Minorca, the former minister that got asylum in Canada. Yeah. They showed him literally being arrested for no reason.
Yes,
I think it was a cell phone video, if I'm correct.
And yes, I believe so.
And so yeah, the church is in bed with Duterte all the time, and it's highly corrupt. And the reason why is because INC in the Philippines votes as a bloc. The whole idea of not being told what to vote for in church does not apply there. So they do that to get power. So, yeah, so Duterte and Manalo are always buddy all the time. There are many INC members in the police force in the Philippines, which are also highly corrupt. And then, yeah, when there were issues with Minorca, they tried to arrest Minorca on zero grounds, which the Fifth Estate talked about.
Yes. And it's disturbing how, they could just drag a person off the street with impunity, take them for however long, torture them, and then send them home and be like, oh, we don't know where you got the black eye and loose teeth from.
Where'd that grenade come from?
Yeah, I don't know. How did he lose an arm? Oh, we don't know. Must have been a tiger.
Right. And even talking about what Beth was talking about earlier, with the skimming of the offering. So she was talking about Rolando Dizon, I think it is. It was a former minister in California, which I found out later by other INC brethren, that he was a highly respected minister around the country, actually. And many people also had major crushes on him. He was the hot minister, apparently, but that's besides the point.
Is that hot for preacher?
Right. You're the worst.
I know.
So he gave an interview to the same CBC reporters for the Fifth Estate, where they talked about, and this isn't anything new either, but he talked about how America or the United States and Canada are the church's cash cows because on average, people in America and in Canada do tend to make more money than people living in the Philippines or in Africa or anything like that. So what they'll do is they'll come tour America, literally take cash from the various districts that they go to and try to smuggle it out of the country.
Mm.
And it was no questions asked. I think even DAZN tried to say, or ask where the money was going, and he got, put a wallop in front of him for it. And I think a guy got caught in 2015, even smuggling cash out of the United States. So, and this is also going towards lavish living conditions, private planes, you name it. And again, this is also what I think we talked about this on the last time. This is exactly what Eduardo Manalo's mother and brother called him out for publicly, that he got them expelled and excommunicated from the church for. This is all like real stuff that's happening, and people are constantly still siding with Manalo over this, and it's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, I think in some ways I would say it's related to the whole notion of the prosperity gospel. And when there was a woman down south, I don't remember what state specifically, but she was interviewed for, I believe, 60 minutes. It might have been 2020. This is how long ago I'm going back. But basically, the interview asked her, well, I mean, she was on fixed income, basically giving every penny she had to the church. And she's like, well, our minister can't go around in a shabby car and have a shabby home. He has to have the best there is. And the interviewer asked her, well, what about you? You have no food. She literally had no food. Oh, I don't deserve food. I'm poor. I'm poor. I'm black. And no, well, her preacher was black, which made this comment really bizarre to me, at least at the time, was that, no, he deserves the best there is. And I'm like thinking, he's driving around a gold-plated Rolls Royce. It might even been Creflo Dollar.
Oh.
I think it was, but I'm not 100% sure about that. But basically, this is the mindset that these people have, is that they're ministers, they're men of God. So therefore they deserve the best, while I deserve nothing because I'm just a poor sinner. And this is the mindset of the prosperity gospel that these preachers feed off of. And it's a very cultish, mindset that you find in other cults. I mean, it was prevalent with Jim Jones and David Koresh. I mean, they could fuck around all they wanted. You guys ain't allowed to have sex, but I can. It's that divide between, the have and the have-nots, and basically they have them so psychologically manipulated that they're just lowly sinners, and I'm a man of God, or in some cases a woman.
Well, and even quoting the zone from the article, not just Airbuses, but the lifestyle, the houses, the mansions, the swimming pools, multiple places where he resides at, the things that they're able to do or able to purchase on a whim. It's staggering. Where does that come from? There's only one source. That's the offering from the brethren. They would segregate some cash, a good amount of the cash, and they would bundle it together. And there are collectors who would show up on a particular day to pick up the bag of money, the bag of cash, and they transfer that all to the U.S. main office.
Well, yeah, I know. Was it 2015? Might have been 14. There was the arrest that they did mention, and there was a woman involved as well in that too. But I think the guy took most of the heat, and that's what it didn't click then, but in fact, it just clicked just now that this was all INC related, and it just like, so yeah, I guess they've been on my radar for a couple years now. but yeah, it just blows my mind how popular, for lack of a better word. I mean, yeah, granted, they're smaller than like the Catholic Church and shit like that, but it's like in the Philippines, they're basically running the government, and that's what's scary about what we see here in the States with theocracy. That's what we're headed for if we allow it to continue.
Right.
Well, yeah.
I mean,
I can totally see that.
It's like, like you were saying, Joe, they vote as a block, just like the Hasidic Jews do. They pick a candidate, and the whole fucking congregation votes for the same dude or gal.
And a vast majority of churches get as close to that line as you can before becoming illegal, before becoming a blatant illegal, hey, if you're a part of this church, you need to vote for this person. Now it's just about, good Christians would vote for these people, or follow these issues. I mean, you have an entire, white evangelical base in America that basically votes one way all the time based on probably 2 issues, and that's about it. They don't change because that's what they see as the only things that are ever important to them.
Yeah. Well, it's like, I mean, I don't want to say joke, but one of the biggest things that I faced when President Obama was running for his second term was, one issue voters. And they're like, well, you ask any Republican in this, well, not any, but pretty much any Republican in this area why they were voting for, Romney. Oh, he's against abortion. I'm like, is that the only reason you're voting? And it was like, yeah. Nothing about his domestic policy or his foreign policy. I mean, compared to Trump, I would vote Romney too myself. If it was between Romney and Trump, yeah. But it's like, I mean, when you get that kind of clout in a political party in any country, it's going to cause problems. I mean, especially when they're already chummy with the leader.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and they're not much of a democracy, really. They're democratic, kind of the way Russia's last election was democratic, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I need another straw.
Everybody's gonna vote for Duterte or else.
Right.
Yeah, that's real democratic there. It's crazy. So this fellow now is.
I'm sorry, but Steve just posted a comment. This is for you, Morgan. He goes,
yeah.
I know Morgan wears those glasses to see properly, but I'm waiting for the day she takes them off dramatically to make a point.
No, because I did that once and I broke my old ones.
Oh no!
That's literally, I got mad, and I mean, they were on their way out anyway because they're old as hell. But yeah, so I do not do dramatic things with the glasses anymore.
Guys, like,
well, these glasses, Steve, are just reading ones. These are, let's see, where am I? Here's my real ones.
Now, see, if I tried that, I could probably get them off dramatically, but I'd probably poke myself in the eye trying to put them back on while doing something else.
Yeah. I like my dorky glasses, but I gotta get when I get ones, I gotta get different nose piece because they slide down my face. But yeah.
So I know you got to get going soon, Joe. But I know you'd mentioned before we went on, and I wanted you to get a chance to talk about it. So you are writing a counter-apologetic book on INC stuff, aren't you?
Yeah. Someone very generously gave me a PDF copy of Eranio Manalo's Fundamental Doctrines of Iglesia Ni Christo, or of the Iglesia Ni Christo, which, random tangent, bothers the hell out of me. Not the title, but the idea that, so technically Iglesia Ni Christo means Church of Christ. So when you say Iglesia Ni Christo, you usually say as the Church of Christ. You don't say,
Yeah.
oh, I'm going to Church of Christ. Then you say, I'm going to the Church of Christ.
Yes.
But the problem is they brand it so well as INC or as Iglesia Ni Christo that like the grammar crazy person in me goes absolutely insane every single time because I always screw it up. So anyway, that's my random tangent. So yeah, now the cool thing about this book and about me having it now is they don't give it out to the public. It's usually meant just for ministers.
It's again a bit like Scientology that way. They guard it very closely.
Right. And even to the point where when they recently had a debate, I can't remember the guy's name from INC, but they debated Dr. James White about the Trinity. Dr. James White was constantly trying to say, well, this is what you believe, this is what you believe, and the INC guy was saying, nope, you're getting it wrong every single time, where he just responds saying, I don't have your book. If you give me your book, I can respond to it. And then he's like, nah, go screw yourself. So, and the cool thing about me or someone like me doing it, or someone like one of us doing it, is a lot of people who go against INC or who even care enough about INC are other religious people or other Christians, especially Catholics. So you're usually getting one religious person arguing with INC, which usually never goes anywhere because it's ridiculous.
It's like when Christians and Muslims argue over who has the better sky wizard.
Right. Or I always like to say it's like two kids arguing over what their imaginary friend wants to play next. You know, it doesn't matter. So I'm going through it bit by bit. It's still very early on. I don't know how long it'll take to actually complete the whole thing. But yeah, there's some crazy stuff in there. It's been a trip.
Because you weren't in for all that long, so you wouldn't have gotten a chance to read a lot of it, I would guess, huh?
Well, I mean, technically I went through the entire book, but it was read to me. I never read it myself.
Right.
So because you use this book when you're going through your indoctrination period before your baptism. But yeah, like there is going to be several parts of this book where I have to dedicate chapters to defending the Catholic Church. And I hate the Catholic Church. And I have to sit there and I have to read his book. I'm like, oh my God, this is not what they believe. Oh my God, this is so stupid. Oh my God. And actually, I pulled up one little blurb just for fun. So it's all in question and answer based. It's all basically, here's a question, here's your answer, and here's our biblical verse to prove it. And they talk about how Catholics are. Oh, did I lose my place? Oh, I lost my place. That's fine. I'll talk about it anyway. They talk about how Catholics worship idols and they worship images. Mm-hmm. And by Catholics' own admission, they don't do that. They worship God through images. They think that they're just good people to help them get to God, but it's still God at the end of the day. And their proof, Manalo's proof of it is that, I shit you not, they kneel. That's it. That's all he got. And they'll say, because they kneel, kneeling is a form of worship. Therefore, every time you kneel, you are worshiping whatever's in front of you. So since you're kneeling in front of an image, technically, you are worshiping the image itself.
So if you kneel to give a blowjob,
you're worshiping that dick.
And
Joe, have you ever heard of Alexander Hislop?
No. Who is he?
Oh, she froze up for a second. You're muted. You're muted, Beth. I think.
There you go. I have trouble. Yeah, I'm here. Yeah, I can't remember the title of the book. Remind me later to get you the title of the book. He basically, the whole notion of Catholicism being paganism with their funny little hats and stuff. Yeah. I believe he does the kneeling and the prostrating. Basically, a lot of it it's anti-Catholic.
Oh yeah, no, don't get me wrong. But there is a lot of pagan
behind.
and that's because like when the Roman Catholic Church basically colonized a lot of pagan areas, a lot of pagan cults, they just took on those practices themselves.
Right.
But yeah, my favorite part about that though is this is a quote from the book, and again, I guess the way I see it is, listen to at least what the person says. Don't. If I had to learn anything from INC, it's learn what the person believes by listening to them. Not just from what other people say about them.
Right.
So, and one note that Manala had in here was, note, hence what Catholics say differs from what they do. So even if they deny the worship of images, the fact that they kneel before them proves that they worship them anyway. And that's it.
And again, it's like Deb said, like when you kneel to give a blowjob, like what?
Oh, great and powerful penis.
It's so ridiculous. And
I'm thinking like, okay, so people garden on their knees. So are they worshiping their plants?
Right.
Yeah.
When you're scrubbing your floor, like if your grandma was like a hands and knees floor washer, are you worshiping the linoleum at that point? Like,
right. And it's just full of ridiculous leaps of logic like that. They'll go through cherry-picked verses, and I'm trying my best to not take it as I'm going to show everyone how stupid the church is. I don't want to do that. My hope is to actually have a real in-depth analysis of what this guy teaches, what this church believes, give them credit where credit is due, and then show them the actual history behind what they actually claim. So yeah, hopefully it's still in the works, but I'm hoping it should be in process, probably within, we'll say, a year or two.
Cool, because up until you and I talked, I'd never heard of INC before. It was, we were just kind of doing the usual, so what flavor of theist did you used to be? And you said, Iglesia Ni Christo, huh?
And that's usually the normal response.
the Iglesia what?
Sorry, Deb.
I was just gonna say it's gonna be good to have at least one additional piece of literature out there with a sane point of view that can counter some of this crap, because that's, I think, a danger of some of the more obscure but still well fleshed out groups. Is that there isn't enough criticism out there. So when you get those people who are searching, and they try, a bunch of different cults and crap, they'll come across something like that. Ooh, I've never heard of this before. And it's all like mysterious, but it's still Christian, and it still sort of harkens to my own heritage. And
right.
And to have something there where you can go, yeah, but you might want to take a look at this.
Right. And the church thrives on ignorance. Almost any church does. But what I mean by that is they thrive on people not knowing what the church is, what they stand for, what it's like within the church. They'll usually say, you don't know anything about us. Come to a lesson and we'll show you what we're about. And they'll do it with smiles on their faces. They'll be very cordial. They'll be respectful, and they'll make you feel welcome. I felt welcome there. And it took me a long time. I mean, I went through that entire book that I'm now trying to analyze and critique. I believed a lot of it because I just didn't know more than what I did now.
Yeah.
So yeah, having any type of real critique out there is vital, and I'm excited to be doing this.
Yay!
Well,
excellent.
I think it's important too is that I know when I get into discussions with people in our crazy group, it's like they don't understand that 7,000 Christian denominations, some have the estimate as high as 10,000 worldwide. Okay, there's 3,000 to 6,000 practiced in the United States alone. numbers you believe in depends on where you stand on that spectrum. And it's like, I knew nothing about about INC until we had you on the first time. I mean, but I didn't know how crazy of a cult they were. And it's just like when we did Keith Rainier with Nexium. I was hesitant to call them a cult. It took me to the second show after
where there's members are being arrested for sex trafficking left, right, and center. We're like, okay, that's a cult. Definitely a cult.
Jeez.
Yeah. I think the point you made is that we need more people that have been exposed or even have an inkling of what these obscure religions or obscure versions are all about. I mean, I've been watching documentary lately on YouTube. That's my form of quote TV, and primarily about Buddhism and what the Buddhism in Tibet I know is much different than the type of Buddhism in India and China, but there's also Buddhism in Japan, which I didn't know. I thought it was all Shinto, but no, and Shinto is an offshoot of, it's like, okay, so people hear the word Buddhism and they think, oh, Chinese Buddhism.
And they all think that it's very similar, but then there's atheistic Buddhism and there's theistic Buddhism.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all different. My husband's a Zen Buddhist, which is the main sect out of Japan, which is where he picked it up when he was in Japan. So it's all different.
Well, it's just like I get into argument and I'm like, well, which one? Huh? Well, I said there's primarily 3, but there's actually 4. And if you really want to dig, there's, 5. I mean, we know atheistic and theistic. Ask them all together. It's like, no, they have all different beliefs. I mean, it's like, and that's the thing. And this is not just with theists that I'm having these discussions. There's atheists that don't know that there's a difference between Luciferianism, atheistic Satanism, and theistic Satanism. They think they're all the same thing.
Yeah. And they're like, they'll make fun of a Satanist for believing in the devil, and it's like, you do realize that, for instance, the entire Satanic Temple are atheists, right? Like, that's kind of their thing.
So I think with something like INC, I think it's important that we get, more information out there.
Yeah. Steve says it. He said in regards to my husband, he picked up Buddhism like a disease, like he contracted it. And back a little bit, Tesla Ranger mentions kneeling to the porcelain god. There's another one.
Jeez.
It's like, so if you happen to kneel while you're barfing, you are now worshiping your toilet.
There you go.
Just so you know. But I'm still like, blowjob, man. Like, worship the great and powerful D. unless of course you're not attracted to those, and then I don't know. If you kneel in front of vaginas, I guess that works too. for those of you who prefer vaginas out there, Beth.
I didn't hear you. I was reading chat.
Never mind.
I'll have to replay this.
We don't want to make her turn red like Joe's shirt. So.
Right.
Yeah, just yeah. You don't need to know. And Dee's been mentioning she was just in Japan and she saw all kinds of Shinto shrines and Buddhist temples when she was there. And she said that after the Meiji restoration, Buddhist temples and Shinto shrines were intermingled. Then after 1868, the government tried to separate the two so it could promote state Shinto and emperor worship. Interesting. Yeah. Well, Joe, thank you very much for joining us again. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Is there anything, any sites or anything you wanted to promote before you go? Or
Sure. So I don't really do a lot of social media for myself. I'm usually terrible at Twitter and such. So I'll just post, or I'll plug the Milwaukee Humanist, which I'm helping lead right now. So if you ever want to check them out, you can check out Milwaukee Humanists on Facebook. Twitter we suck at, so don't bother. And then our website, mkehumanist.com.
You know, if you have a Facebook page for them, you can set that to auto tweet.
You assume I'm smart. There's an issue. You have to be smart to do that type of stuff.
Dude, you're writing a book. I'm not even that ambitious.
Real then. Yeah.
Unless you're implying that one doesn't have to be smart to write a book, which I suppose is true on some levels. But
there are a lot of
people
Trump should not have wrote books.
Trump supposedly wrote a book. Yeah, wrote in scare quotes.
I mean, when you see a lot of the Christian apologetics books that are out there, you know, half of those people should not have written a book either.
Yeah. Oh man, you get talking about apologetics. I was on the Odd Atheist Friends podcast this morning, and we were talking about how it sucks that Jordan Peterson lives down the highway from me, and then I was like, yeah. And fucking Saitan Bruken Kate lives there too. And Matt, one of the hosts, Matthew, is like, "Oh God, that guy! Yeah, that fucker." All right. Well, you're very welcome, and thanks for popping in and sharing an update with us. We appreciate it. The links and everything are great, and I have updated in the YouTube description the links to the videos in the article, and after we're done, I'll update the Spreaker side.
Awesome. So, there you go. Thank you very much. Have a great night, guys.
Welcome. Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.
Wow. So, update number 2. I guess going on 3 weeks ago now, we were talking about missionary tourism. Well, this week, missionary tourism kind of got just a little bit out of control.
He didn't listen to the episode.
No, he should have.
And the thing that's really mind-boggling, what is inconsequential? For the simple reason he broke international law.
Yeah.
You went to an island that you're forbidden to go, even allowed to get within 3 miles of the place.
See, how did he get there is my thing. Y'all know how he got there?
A bunch of fishermen.
And they dropped him off at the 3-mile mark, and then he kayaked into the island. Now, regardless of whether he was a missionary or not, and the only reason, we're bringing this up because it's all over the news is because, we discussed a couple weeks ago concerning, does missionary work come at a cost? Well, obviously it does, because regardless of his wanting to spread the gospel, this is a tribe that has had very little to none outside human race for over 1,000 years. So they have absolutely no immunity to any of our disease. So just the fact that he went there has now jeopardized that tribe. The fact that he died there and his body is still there, and in my opinion should stay there and fucking rot.
Well, I think part of the reason they might want to try and retrieve it is precisely that.
Right, yeah. None of the articles have come out and said that, so, but if that's the case, then obviously, yeah.
I read one where they talked about consulting with a team of anthropologists as part of trying to decide if and how they could retrieve the body. But the thing is, the fishermen. So we're talking about this Christian missionary from the U.S. who, and he's obviously done a bunch of missionary tourism, because it made mention of him doing work in South Africa in one of the articles that I was reading this morning.
He's been to the island twice before, too.
Oh, geez. But not on it or near it?
No, he's been on it. The one time he was actually shot at, but they didn't do anything. And he was, supposedly was like, "Oh, Jesus loves you," and all this other fucking bullshit.
I thought that was on the same trip.
No, one article I've read said he's been there twice. Another article I read said he's been there 4 times, including this last one where he's
okay.
But he's been there before, and the one article said he tried using a language from Africa to try to communicate.
Yes.
And supposedly another time he went there, he tried to use another island language from that same region.
Yeah.
To try to communicate, because there were reports that they were similar, but the one official attempt at contact about in the 90s, I believe.
Yes.
An interpreter there, and they didn't understand what he was saying. So
yeah. So who the hell knows what kind of derivative dialect they've got going on there? I just had to laugh though. Tesla Ranger. I don't know if you guys will get this reference, but he said, "I used to be a missionary like you, and then I took an arrow to the knee."
Oh no, I knew that was coming. Oh no.
Morgan gets it.
It's a video game reference, but
yeah. The only reason I know it is because I've had bunches of friends that played that game before and talked about the arrow to the knee thing. So
is that an Oregon Trail?
No.
Skyrim.
Oh, okay. It's I've never played that one. I used to play Oregon.
Yeah, it's a way newer game than Oregon Trail.
Hey,
hey, did you know that you can get an emulator for Oregon Trail? Like, it's a website.
Yeah.
I played the entire game in like 45 minutes one night a few weeks ago. But anyway,
I had a CD-ROM of Oregon Trail. It was like a newer version back in early 2000s.
When I was in grade 8, they had it on a cassette tape.
Yeah, mine was on CD-ROM, which now my laptop doesn't even take CD-ROMs. So.
Yep.
But
Steve said, so the guy's name was John Allen Chau, and he was from, go figure, Alabama.
Oh, well, I did not even realize that. But yeah, it still sucks that like he's dead and it's just like whatever. But then at the end of the day, it's like, what the hell are you doing? Like, just leave these people alone. And they have had an encounter with like white outsiders before, and I'm not sure exactly the details. Yeah, they yeah, and so it did not go well from by all accounts. I know that. At least, but so yeah, I mean, and they're passing down these stories and these oral traditions and everything, and again with the immunity, and it's just like they've known that something bad happened when outsiders came to the island before, so yeah, they're not going to be all like, "Oh, thank you for telling us about Jesus" or whatever. Just leave people alone.
I was reading there was
after the incident in 2006 where the 2 fishermen were killed because they accidentally landed on the island, they hung their bodies up like scarecrows. Okay?
Yeah.
So that's when the government basically said, that's it. We're not dealing with this shit anymore. Leave these people be you cannot go within 3, or it might be 5. I can't remember, but I think it's 3 miles of the island. Anybody that does is going to be prosecuted.
Well,
So-
and one of the things that they believe might have contributed to the way the islanders are is back, and I want to say late 19th century.
That's the incident I was referring to.
Yes. And that guy, I think he was an Englishman, which wouldn't surprise me because Englishmen did a lot of stupid things back then.
Well, they were an English colony for a while.
Yes, well, because they were part of India, which was part of England.
Right.
But this guy, by all accounts, he landed on that island and some of the neighboring islands, and they believe he actually kidnapped a bunch of islanders and, like, you know, mistreated them, and like some of the other islander people were like sexually assaulted and stuff, and so they think that this asshole is why the islanders are like, fuck you, whitey, and the canoe you came in on.
Yeah. Well, what was really, I guess what's beyond absurd for me is this group called whoops, wrong group. It's a Christian group. They're extremely concerned about the death of Chau. Now, they're saying what they're trying to do is tie the Christian persecution that's going on in India to this tribal group killing this interloper. And it's like so beyond absurd because it's like, it's called International Christian Concern. They're a nonprofit that aims to draw attention toward Christian suffering throughout the world. Now, yes, there is Christian persecution going up. Excuse me.
In the Middle East and Pakistan
and yes, I you know, just because they are fucking fellow human beings, that shouldn't be happening. I don't give a shit with the religion. You don't kill somebody else. You don't mistreat somebody else because they believe differently than you. But they're saying, we here at International Christian Concern are extremely concerned by the reports of an American missionary being murdered in India's Andaman and Nicobar Islands. My apologies for probably slaughtering those names. Our thoughts and prayers go out to both John's family and friends. A full investigation must be launched. The guy broke international. What? He broke fucking
CSI over there.
Yeah, it's like he broke international law. What the fuck do you want to investigate?
Yeah, and I've seen Christians calling for like the prosecution of these people and everything like that. And it's just like, how many of these same people believe that if a trespasser comes into their house, they have the right to shoot them?
Yes.
There was a meme going around today that I
didn't see that one.
Yes, it just I just saw it for the first time today, saying that exact same thing, Morgan. How many of you saying that these tribal people need to be prosecuted for the murder of this idiot? I believe you have the right to shoot an intruder in your own home.
It's their own fucking home. Yeah. And he's been there and acted in what they perceive to be a hostile manner previously.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous that they would even think that. And it's like, who are they? How are they going to prosecute these people? First of all, under what law?
Yeah,
because
and nobody speaks their language.
Yeah, you're never going to get them to understand what the fuck you're doing or why. And all they're going to think is that these bastards have come and harmed more of our people again, so we should kill more of them.
Well, this is from No Sacred Cows, and...
yes, I did see that.
And, I can't remember if it's a he or she. Oh, that's Dave, I think.
Yes, it is.
They put basically International Christian Concern acknowledges that Chau traveled there so he could meet with the Sentinelese tribes to preach Christianity, yet completely ignore that he did so illegally. The group also fails to mention, and they put out a press release about this, that the tribe could have died from merely being exposed to Chau, instead of focusing on perpetuating the faulty notion that these people should be tried with murder.
And these people don't even know that there's that kind of danger. Like, they just think that the people want to come and kidnap them and do violence. They don't even understand things like microbes and diseases and shit and what could happen to them that way. They don't even necessarily have a clue about that. So, and murder, okay, so murder is an unlawful killing. So by what law are you saying that they can't kill somebody who encroaches in their sovereign territory? So I don't see how you could possibly call it murder.
Well, see, from what I've read about this group is that basically, as I said, they're trying to tie this into the Christian persecution that's taking place in India. And yes, they are part of India, but they are basically sovereign for better, because nobody can communicate with them. In fact, they tried to go there after the tsunami in 2004 to see how they were, and they shot at the fucking helicopters with arrows. It's like they don't want, or they appear to not want outside contact. They want to maintain the way of life.
They want to be left alone.
And what monitoring that is being done from a distance. They're not interfering. The prime directive that you spoke about the other day, they don't want to violate the prime directive. Yes, I'm referencing Star Trek, because these people don't want it. They don't want anything to do with it, and they think that their numbers are dwindling. Between 50 to 150. Yeah, so whereas before it was in the thousands. So yeah, I mean, for all we know, this whole tribe could be wiped out in the next 3 weeks. It's a really tough situation, and it doesn't really matter that Fuckstein was a fucking, Christian missionary. That has nothing to do with it in my mind. It's the fact that he had the audacity to be a fucking idiot.
And ignore everything. And so what I said, I think, probably helped to encourage him to keep going, because the very day before he got killed, he was shot at, and some kid hit him in the Bible with an arrow.
Yeah.
And I guarantee you, he's like, oh, the Lord is protecting me. He had him shoot the Bible, and that's a sign that God wants me to persist in my mission, Well,
according to CNN, they got some notes, I guess, that he wrote, and he wrote, this is from Chau, quote, "Lord, is this island Satan's last stronghold, where none have heard or even had the chance to hear your name?" So that tells you the mentality of this fucker.
Yep. And if he thinks that is Satan's last stronghold, he ain't never been to Vegas.
But yeah, and it's just crazy, this whole, and I have heard that idea that, Jesus can't return until all, nations and all peoples have heard or had a chance to hear the word of God and everything. And so, yeah, it's all feeding into this weird apocalyptic fantasy. And this is how it harms people, because this guy, I mean, he got himself killed because of this. And people were like, oh, there's no harm in like me perpetuating that message. And there is, like, that's fine. Believe what you want. But at the same time, you should tell people, hey, other people can believe whatever the fuck they want to. It's fine.
Well, and to justify this, and I haven't vetted this tidbit either way, whether it's true or whether it's false, is that allegedly, and I don't even remember what side, so to speak, this is coming from, people are justifying his going to the island because in the Jawa I'm probably slaughtering that name too, so my apologies. Allegedly, they have set up a theme park, for lack of a better word, where people can go on these quote mission trips, so to speak, to observe how savages really live.
Oh,
That
Lordy.
is exactly the missionary tourism we talked about a few weeks ago.
Exactly.
Yep.
And that's what drew me to this story, because really, I don't give a shit this guy died. Okay? He was a fucking idiot, and he got what he deserved. I'm sorry, you break the law. They were justified. Basically, you broke into their house and they fucking shot you with a gun.
Yep.
Although
Well,
there were still tips.
And Steve made a couple good points too when we were talking about the people who would say, "Oh, but it's okay for us to shoot somebody that broke into our house." He said, "How many of those hypocrites support closing the borders?"
Exactly. In fact, a conversation erupted on, I can't remember whose page it was, but basically said the same thing. And one guy was saying, well, these Mexicans coming, it's like, they're not fucking Mexicans, first off. They're from Venezuela, Honduras, and Guatemala.
Yeah.
Okay? So they're not fucking Mexicans, so get your fucking story straight. It's like...
Well, only Mexicans ever want to come from the South to America, though, don't you know?
Yeah. And that, but what drew me was the fact that, not even 2 weeks ago we were talking about this shit. And it's just really annoying to, there is no justification for what Chau did. None.
Yeah.
I don't give a flying fuck about your scary fairy sky father or son or Holy Ghost, which isn't even biblical anyways.
Steve says also, because Trump doesn't have any business dealings with the Andaman and Nicobar Islands, they're not going to go to war. And he said, but hey, Saudi Arabia can still kill whoever they want.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm glad Trump hasn't said anything about this, just for the simple reason I'm sick.
He'd say something dumb?
Well,
you mean like everything else he ever says?
And he has no tact, and this is a conversation from a world leader, but I feel like you'd have to have a lot of tact to have this conversation as a world leader, but then also Trump has absolutely no tact. In fact, probably negative on that.
I was going to say, does he even know what it is?
He's probably, if he did know, he'd be allergic to it.
Yeah, John Kelly is keeping this story far, far, far away from him.
Yeah.
Now, Dee made a point too. We should point out that the missionary group that is claiming Chau worked for them is called the All Nations Group, based out of Kansas City. Also the home of International House of Prayer.
I thought you were going to say International House of Pancakes for a second there.
I
was like, what did they do? Don't tell me they did something bad.
I always want to say the International House of Handshakes, which is a Mormon temple.
Yeah.
Iho.
Yep.
Leave it to D to find the IHOP.
Yep.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, the other group that's saying, these people should be prosecuted have nothing to do with Chau. None.
No.
They have their own fucking agenda.
Well, and the funny thing is, most of them would probably say, like, on another subject, if it came up, that he wasn't a real Christian because he didn't follow their sect.
Yeah.
But right now it serves them for them to embrace him as a Christian martyr.
Yeah, it does. And that's what I feel like a lot of it is, instead of it being a lesson for why you should just leave people alone. And you don't have to do all this and go be all wild like this. Instead, people are going to be like, oh, he's a martyr. And that's what concerns me, because I'm already kind of seeing that happening.
Oh, I've been seeing lots of that going around. You know, Christian groups praise Chau as Christian martyr. I'm like,
no, it should be opposite. It should be like, hey, this is why you don't do this.
Exactly.
So other people don't get killed, and so these tribes aren't at more risk. Like,
yeah.
Going back to your thing about the going into somebody's house and getting shot, there wasn't a meme. It was a quote, so to speak, from a mutual friend of ours. Since this was a friend's post, I'm not gonna blast their name, but basically this person said, how many people calling for the Sentinel tribes to be prosecuted after someone illegally tried to spread their religion to them via trespassing, also keep a gun in their homes in case anyone breaks in.
Yeah. Now,
to see the irony. But yeah.
Now, you know that if some idiot like that went to Saudi and tried to preach Christianity in the square in Riyadh, then they got executed. They wouldn't say a goddamn thing because they kissed Saudi's ass. But because
now, which country in the Middle East is it illegal to do that?
Saudi.
I was gonna say it is Saudi, isn't it?
It's totally Saudi. Yeah. It is absolutely illegal to do that. I think there's more than one too that it's illegal to do that. Or China.
I was gonna say China, you're not allowed to do that either.
Yeah, because look at how Trump kisses China's ass. Mm-hmm. So some idiot went over to China or North Korea.
And that did happen.
That did happen. Or, I mean, that guy that got beaten to death because he touched a poster.
That's what I'm referring to. Not that he was like preaching. He wasn't doing the missionary. He was doing, again, that kind of tourism of, ooh, look at these oppressed people. And again, it's just like, don't go there. That's not your place to do that. Like,
yep.
It's just not.
It basically comes down to when in Rome, do as the Romans do. I mean, I'm not going to go over to a country that I know is illegal to preach, if I still believe, Christianity.
Well, look at it this way. What if one of us went to Russia and started walking around saying being gay is awesome?
Yeah, exactly. It's illegal there to do that.
Yep. Like, neither one of you guys could go over to Russia right now and say, hey, I'm gay or bi and it's okay. You'd both be thrown in jail.
Yeah.
Probably executed on the spot, actually.
Or, for being American and gay and bi.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you don't go and break another. I mean, yeah, we can sit from our, our high chairs and babble on about how, it's oppressive and yada, 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 but that's not our country.
Yeah.
We can do what we can from our country, but we should not be going over there as missionaries.
Yeah, not going over there to interfere and tell them how to, whatever, because there is Russian activists that are doing awesome work there, and what we can do is we can support their efforts, and we can encourage our own leaders to do sanctions, things like that to pressure them. But thing is, like, I'm not doing anybody any good by flying over to Russia. I'm not convincing anybody, because they're going to be like, well, this is some dumb American queer who's coming over here trying to infiltrate, and you see it's all American stuff.
She come over here to corrupt our youth, which is exactly what they say is going to happen.
Yeah, and I would do more harm than good.
On in Uganda.
Yeah.
As far as the LGBT issue there, fucking Scott Lively and his crew of cretins went over there and convinced the fucking government that homosexuality was, and you're adopting Western culture, and Western culture is bad, and yada. Now, basically, I mean, they don't have a quote kill the gays bill, but it's as close as you can get without killing the gays.
I recommend, you can find it on YouTube, but Stephen Fry did a 3-part series on how gay people are treated in other parts of the world. He went to Uganda and he spoke with the, what do they call him? Like the ethics minister or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, something like that.
And that guy is like, he's insane. And some of the shit he believes is ridiculous.
And
But
it's twisted religion from the West.
Yeah.
They've
Like, for
taken
instance, all he talks about is anal sex. And Stephen Fry's like, but I've been gay my entire adult life and I have no interest in anal sex. Like, where do you get this from? You know, it's, hey, my friend Jamie's in the chat from Tirana. Hey, Jamie. He says, and he's got a point here too, martyrdom is glamorized as the highest value a believer can take.
Yeah.
And then, so yeah, that's where you get a lot of this, the ends justify the means type thinking. So he's not going to care so much that it's illegal or he could get killed or whatnot, because he believes that that's what God wants and that he's gonna do God's work and fulfill his destiny and all that horse shit. And yes, Steve just said, like suicide bombers, same kind of shit.
Well,
and they're
like
looking.
When I still lived in Buffalo, I was like, oh, who wears the pants in your relationship? I'm like, no one. My girlfriend,
both of us.
Yeah, we're on equal footing. Nobody wears the quote pants, and I'm like, why are you so interested in my sex life? What business is it of, it's like they focus in on the quote truly negative, anal sex, or truly disgusting in their minds, or who wears the pants in a lesbian relationship. But it's like, that's not what it's about. Is that all you think about or
the one is like, which one to use the man and which one to use the woman? Yeah. Like,
it's like
either or both. Like, depends on who you've got.
But yeah, it's the whole idea that they have to look at the negative. They have to make themselves look good. The whole martyrdom bullshit.
Well, and this harkens back then to, like, we were talking about these groups that think the Sentinelese should be prosecuted and they're murderers and all this shit, and they're all upset. I'm like, wait a minute. Why are they upset? Because Buddy has just bought himself the golden ticket to heaven, being killed for his faith, right? They should be happy. He's going to get all the best there is in heaven, isn't he?
Well, that's the whole absurdity, is they talk about the afterlife and all this bullshit, but then they go like off the rails because somebody died. It's like, dude, isn't death your final destination?
Like if if heaven was real, if that guy didn't earn heaven, nobody the fuck does.
Yeah.
Right? So what are they upset about? And he's writing in his like journal entries and stuff about, he believes it's the right thing to do and he's compelled to talk to these people. But then he also says, but I don't want to die. And I'm like, but why not? You want to go to heaven, right? And again, the best way to go to heaven is to die for your faith.
Yeah.
So you should be like, well, maybe, and okay, so even if you say, well, I don't want to die because God said you're not supposed to want to, and it's supposed to be when he chooses and all that shit. But I'm like, God can read your mind. If he knows that you're thinking, yeah, I'm going to go be a missionary and I hope I get killed by some, uber xenophobic tribes people with lots of arrows so I can go to heaven faster. It's yeah.
It's just crazy because like, I know when my mom died a couple years ago, it's like, I have to give my mom and dad credit, is that she was, quote, ready to go because, she was almost 94. But, like, one of the things my dad wanted to do with her wake and with the wedding and, the aftermath was not so much grieving in the, quote, Christian sense, but celebrate her life. She lived 94 years. She survived cancer 5 times.
Yeah.
The 6th time, kind of got her, but I think age had more to do with it. But it's like, yeah, that's what it should be, a celebration of life. Yeah, we're good. People are going to miss my mom. And no, I don't miss my mom. I don't even really think about it, to be honest, but I'm weird. That's the thing. It's like you said, Deb, this guy was saying, oh yeah, I want to do it, but I don't want to die.
Yeah. It doesn't make sense.
No.
Does not make sense. Like, I get that supposedly God prohibited suicide because, hell, if you knew that all you had to do was, do a prayer, do some good stuff, or accept Jesus and then die, and you're good for eternity, everybody would do that. Be like, okay, I accept Jesus as my savior, blah, 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 blah. All right, boom. And woo, I'm in heaven forever. So I get why they had to put... I can imagine at some point, back in the early years of the church where people were really pushing the heaven angle, and suddenly people were like, oh, well, I'll just go jump off a cliff then. So, they had to do that at some point. Otherwise, everybody would just kill themselves and there would have been no Christians, which actually kind of would have been okay, but whatever. But yeah, like if it's going to be something where you're not actually killing yourself, but you're doing God's work, then you should be happy to croak.
Yeah. Well, I think it comes down to really that, people who say that being a missionary or doing missionary work, or, for those that are secular that are doing the whole slum tourism bullshit, it does have consequences. Sometimes pretty shitty consequences. If you're going over to country and breaking their laws, then you deserve whatever consequence you got. Yeah, death is a little extreme, but it's, a known fact that these people kill people when they invade their space.
Yeah.
I just think it's funny that, 2-3 weeks ago we were talking about this and then this happens.
Yeah, I know. Again, it's like, listen to what we say. Sometimes we say things of value.
We do.
Yeah, we have a predictive... Are we psychic?
I'm starting to think so, because if something happens, it seems like 2 weeks after we put out an episode that's related to the topic. It's been crazy.
I don't know,
lately.
should we go ahead with the Dead Sea Scrolls? I'm afraid to see what happens after that.
Yeah.
Well, the only good thing would be that the Bible Museum closes.
Could be.
Yeah. So this actually, before we wrap up there, this reminds me of there's a Star Trek episode, because there's a Star Trek episode for everything, it's not one of the better ones because it's from the first season, but if any of you listening can think of it, it's an episode where they're on this like paradise planet, and like the people got a hiccup yawn there. They run around in skimpy little outfits and they love having sex all the time, and beautiful planet and everything, but their rules, the only punishment for breaking any law is death. Like, doesn't matter what law it is. So they're playing some sort of ball game, and Wesley Crusher falls into this like flower bed trying to get the ball, and he like destroys the flower bed, and they're like, oh, that's so sad because now you have to die.
Oh, I remember that one. Yeah.
Yeah, and they're like, what?
Yeah.
And their argument was, we have no crime because everybody knows that if you fuck up, you're dead. And it's
Well,
like,
that's wild. I mean, I guess in a sense, it's like, well, we have no crime because we kill all the criminals. Seems like circular reasoning, but
yeah. Well, Singapore is a little bit like that.
yeah.
I'm like, I'm sorry, you can't even you end up in jail for having fucking chewing gum, really? Like, I mean, I've run my hand around a table or on a railing or something and found somebody's old gum before, but it's 10 seconds of ew, where's some hand sanitizer, and then you move on with your life. Like, it's not that catastrophic, but whatever. Yeah. Yes, Steve, it was super hammy. He says, a season 1 episode of Star Trek The Next Generation, super hammy. Oh, yeah. You should have seen the skimpy outfits, man.
I think it's funny because 3 of the people I follow on Twitter are Marina Sirtis, Data, Brent Spiner, and Jonathan Frakes. And it's like, I never thought, I mean, yeah, I consider myself a Trekkie, but I'm nowhere near Callie's caliber or even Deb's. It's because I don't have TV, so I can't watch reruns, or I would. But it's like, those are 3 people I never thought I'd be following on Twitter. It's like, yeah. and it's funny because Marina's a little, for lack of a better word, she's a little Spitfire liberal.
Oh, totally. I love Marina Sirtis.
Like, oh yeah, crush. Yeah, I had a fangirl crush on her.
Oh, you're talking about, Steve, you're talking about the episode The Naked Now. It wasn't really drunk. It was some kind of microbe in the frozen air from this planet that made them all act like they're drunk. But yes, that's a good one. The original, The Naked Time, was pretty good because it had a shirtless Sulu running around the halls of the Enterprise with a foil rapier.
Is that the one with the plants that sprayed him?
No. This is so there was some kind of microbe in the air of this planet, and the planet had was frozen, and something thawed part of it, and it got into their skin, and it acted like an intoxicant, but it was like one step above alcohol because it would make them do really, really stupid stuff, like turn off the environmental controls or, walk out an airlock into space or stupid shit where a bunch of them died.
Yeah, I remember the episode with Sulu with his rapier.
Oh, yeah. That was a good one. And here we go. I got some, the episode I was talking about where you get killed for everything is called Justice. And look at those outfits.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God.
Yep, I remember that one now.
I know what I'm going to be watching on Netflix.
There you go. Season 1, episode 8.
All right.
There you go.
Yeah.
Look, what else we got here? Oh, so I'm clicking the wrong one. There, look at that. We got the skimpy volleyball outfits, and I think that's the same picture.
Man, I'm just imagining the person from wardrobe was just like,
I know.
just like, hey, did you get those costumes done? They just grab bed sheets and cut holes in them and get a panic, and we're like, oh yeah, I totally did that. Because
yeah,
bed sheets.
Yeah,
I like this one where Troy's got the old ammo gray cat suit on, and
she's probably thinking, what the fuck did wardrobe just do?
I know, eh?
That is big mood.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, but that guy has camel toe.
Oh yeah, it's
Seriously.
wildly distracting.
Well, so does she.
Yep.
Yeah, again, wildly distracting. The whole thing is just like, what? That's so funny.
Excuse me. But yeah. So anyway. So I think I know we're a little short of our usual time, but I think we're gonna wrap things up. As it's an off night, and I know the three of us are kind of tired and stuff, but Steve says you could tell the other one, the ones in the one picture are the police because they have belts. Yeah, that was the ones wearing the gray and the pink outfits, or was it lavender? But yes, and he's right; those were the police. And in reference to the dude with the camel toe, he says the grin he has shows he's fine with it.
Yeah, he did have quite the grin. It was,
Yes,
again,
yes, he
all
did.
wildly distracting.
Well, at least, you know, the wardrobe department wouldn't have had to do much sewing that week.
Oh no, that's what I'm saying. I think they just
Yep.
forgot to do their job that week, and it was just like, oh, we're in a panic, and they just like gave them fabric.
Yeah, here, tape these together.
Yep.
Tie some knots in it.
Yeah, I choose to believe that is exactly what happened,
Okay, we can go with that.
unless I'm proven otherwise, and been like, no, we worked on this for months. How dare you?
Yeah. Yeah, you think they could have figured out how to do that without matching camel toes, though.
Maybe it was they were trying to start a trend.
Because, I mean, it is, you know, the 21st century, but
Yeah.
whatever. But, you know, it also was the 80s.
I think that has more to do with it.
Oh, shit. Alrighty, well, Beth, where do we find you?
Easiest way is on Twitter, Dune998. That connects to my blog, Havoc and Chaos. I'm still writing about Gillian Epperly. And the second part of her book, which is supposedly the science to justify her drinking her shit. But to give you an idea, her science of, you know, salt being an energizing force is because there's an experimental electrical generating station that uses the differential at the mouth of a river between salt water and fresh water from a river. And they've done some jiggy thingy, and because, you know, it can generate energy, yada yada, it translates to that salt is an energizing force. Yeah, it's that bad. So and this is quote 21 chapters, and her chapters are about, you know, like not even a page, but it's like I did the first 3 chapters, and generally I try to stay under 5, and for 3 pages, less than a paragraph each, and I was up to 9 pages.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, so she says it's the 10-to-1 ratio. I mean, it's terrible with debunking pseudoscience. But yeah, you can find me on Twitter. You can find me under Havoc and Chaos. I am also thinking on doing a Patreon for that. Well, I need a new headphone. I need a few other, like a printer and stuff like that. And I don't have the funds to do it. I don't want to do another GoFundMe because, you know, there are people that are in need, especially for healthcare. So if I can raise enough with Patreon, I'm going to give it a shot. But I'm still setting it up. And that connects to Facebook, and I'm under Beth A. Hambridge. If you send me a friend request, please state that it's show related, or I will most likely ignore it because I have been getting a lot of trolls lately. Probably because I'm going after Epperly. But I don't really shit.
The couple comments. This is somewhere. Steve says somewhere the wardrobe department from Star Trek: The Next Generation is watching with a tear in their eye because they spent weeks on those outfits.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm saying. They're going to be like, we
Yeah.
spent so much time.
And Dee says, "You're crazy, Beth, to go through that book, but we love you."
Yeah, just to give you an idea,
Yeah.
well, Julian passed the record for most words on my blog. I'm now up to 27 blog posts on her.
Oh, damn.
Now, granted, 20 of them are going to be her book. But I have, barring her book, I have at least another 5 posts. So, yeah, and she's really doubling down on her Facebook. There's a person on dialysis, or might have to go on dialysis, and is convinced that if she starts chili juice, she'll regrow her kidney. Okay. Remember, it's not so much of fermented cabbage juice. It's the fact that
the salt.
It's the salt. She suggests a gallon of her slop, and it's slop. It's basically way too much salt to ferment. I ferment. In fact, I have a batch that hopefully will be ready tonight. But she puts between for a gallon, and she does it in 2-cup batches, 1 tablespoon of salt. So that comes out to, once you do all the math, 55,200 milligrams of salt. A normal diet that most people would like to see Americans on is 1,500 to 2,300. So she's 9 times the maximum, at least, if not more. So the kidneys filter out salt. So you take that amount of salt and you're potentially going to be on dialysis soon. Guess what?
Yeah.
You're going to kill your 1 remaining kidney, and you're not going to regrow another kidney. So yeah, she's another one. This guy's got a rotted tooth. He's like, oh, should I just drink chili juice and not go to the dentist?
Oh, fuck.
Yeah. I mean, minor, but still can cause a lot of issues.
Oh, yeah.
So.
Oh, Morgan, where do we find you?
All right, so for now, you just find me on Twitter at Mostring, that's MOSTRING, and on Facebook, Morgan L. Stringer. And you can also find me on Instagram by the same Twitter handle, that's MOSTRING.
And you will be finding her haunting the information to find out what her score was for a little while yet to come.
Yep.
Sudite.
Where do we find you?
Well, so some interesting stuff. You can find all 3 of us on the episode of Right to Reason podcast that released today. And that's on all the good podcatchers. It's Stitcher, Spreaker, iTunes. It's on SoundCloud. I believe there's a YouTube one, although it's audio only. But you can go there and hear us as we talk to Robert Stanley and freak him out with all kinds of stuff about dominionism, because he found that kind of freaky the first time he was on our show. So there's that. You can find me on this week's episode of Left at the Valley, which is our friends from the Fraser Valley in British Columbia. I was on their show yesterday afternoon or morning, whatever the hell it was. And then you will also find me on the next episode of the Odd Atheist Friends podcast, which the YouTube version is up today, and they should have the podcast version out in a week or so. Because Eric loves to edit stuff just as much as I do, which is not at all. So, so there's that. I'll be hanging around those places. So little busy. And then usually you can find me on Holy Crap, the vlogcast, which is Sunday mornings at 12:05 a.m. at holycrapthevlogcast.com. And I think I've covered everything for now. So there we go. And of course, we'll be back here next week, and it'll be Monday as usual, unless something really weird happens. Yeah, we've got a couple of things possible, but nothing concrete yet, so we'll keep you posted. We are going to be talking about the on the 10th, the recently discovered fake Dead Sea Scrolls in the Bible Museum, and our friend who is hanging out in the chat there, Dee, is going to come, and because she's been keeping an eye on this story and the scrolls and stuff in general. So we're going to talk about that. What does that mean? How does that impact stuff? And what else could be fake out there? So we'll be doing that in 2 weeks. Next week we'll be here. We're just not entirely sure what we'll be talking about yet. But we'll see you when we get back here at that time. And until then, we'll leave you with the human creed for mankind, and we'll see you then.
Whenever the opportunity presents itself. I know the truth and power of morality without supervision, and of true and accurate righteousness. I know the truth and power of obliterating tyranny, be it intellectual, emotional, or philosophical, and will work toward that goal whenever and however possible. I know the truth and power of human ingenuity. I know the truth and power of human compassion, and I will be mindful of the welfare of others. I know the truth and power of equality and fairness for all living things. I know the truth and power of the importance of our families, our friends, and our fellow men and women. I know the truth and power of human stewardship of our lands, our waters, and our skies, and I will try to act to preserve our environment. I know the truth and power of the sciences of mathematics, of physics, and of chemistry, and of the important role of these disciplines in understanding the workings of this cosmos. I know the truth and power of the rejection of all notions or beliefs that reside in the supernatural or the superstitious, and of those notions or beliefs that we are not supposed to be able to explain. And I know that these rejections are necessary for humankind's survival. I am a human being with a free mind, liberated from irrational influence and from unreasonable dogma.